So we're going to jump right into the builds that I have for these top characters, Leon, Elwin, Tiaris, and Vargas, and we'll even jump into Diehard, because these are the characters I think are very useful in PvE and PvP. So in Leon's case, no matter what faction you're going for, no matter what you're doing, Leon is always going to be amazing. So you should definitely include him into your team if you get him. The thing is, he's an SSR unit and he's difficult to get, so a lot of people re-roll and they go all in for Leon, and I would say it's justified. He is a tank. He can't die, and he has tons of attack, so he kills everything and he takes the hits. So he has the ability Epic Knight. With every block moved, it increases his damage and increases his defense. So you want to keep him active, you want to keep him attacking. The class I go with him is right down the middle, and that's into Royal Knight. I would recommend, if you can, master class everything, but you should always end back at Royal Knight. Once you use a rune, you can come back using gold after you've mastered that class, and you could actually get his stats buffed way higher that way. But the Royal Knight is just one of the best classes for him to go. And I find the Strike Master almost seems to have less durability and less defense, and it just seems to die easier. So we'll go into some of the equipment I have for him. I have the spear that actually happened from the Shuri event, that first starting event, and it has an attack boost of 4%. So before initiating combat, 30% chance to reduce enemies' attack and intelligence by 20%. Now, with him, I have his ability also, passive before battle, 50% chance to reduce enemies' attack and intelligence by 20%. So when both of those proc, when I'm attacking someone, almost no damage comes through to Leon, of course with his extremely high armor as it is. And then if you have the faction buff up, he has massive, like a 20% defense buff as well. So he becomes a unit that will hit a unit of the same level as him and only take 34 damage and deal 4,000 damage. That's with moving some distance. That also goes into the runes that I use for him. The full moon runes increase his attack and intelligence by 5%, and when HP is above 80%, attack and defense stats increase by 10%. But I would actually recommend the Rough Sea, and if you don't know the Rough Sea, when you have all 4 pieces equipped, the Rough Sea will actually increase your attack and decrease damage taken by 15%, and it increases your attack by 10% when you're attacking. So it's not active as often, but it's very useful for a character that's moving around and actively attacking, which is what you should be doing with your Leon. He should always move into attack and then run away with that ability where he lets him move after his attack. You run in, kill something, run back, and that leaves you in the best situation. So we're going to move on to the next one. So Elwin is my swordsman. I find that he has good damage output and a good amount of defense. A lot of people choose to use Ledin, but I find Ledin is really the survivability swordsman. He'll keep healing himself and he'll keep surviving, but he won't put out as much damage. And in some cases I find with Elwin, putting out the extra damage really goes the extra mile in killing off a character that would cause a lot of issues for your lineup. So I use Elwin, and I actually use the equipment, the boots that increase his speed, because him getting that one extra step has saved me in a lot of occasions. He has good damage output, and for him I also run the full moon set of attack and intelligence plus 5%, and when HP is above 80%, attack and defense are increased. Now, that one I would actually keep recommending the full moon, because the full moon with Elwin works great with his abilities. So his ability to heal himself after every combat, and his activatable ability that will heal him even farther after every combat, it very much means that he's going to be at full health most of the time, even without a healer present. So you can keep him at full health, and he works great with Leon because he is part of the Empire. He will get Leon's faction buff. So if you have Elwin and Leon together, they are a pair made in heaven. So they work great with each other. The class you can see I went with is the standard hero class. It goes straight down the middle. If you're lacking in a spearman, you could go down the spearman path, but I would recommend keeping him the swordsman, because they seem the most effective, and there's plenty of better spearsmen out there. So we're going to move from Elwin to Vargas. Vargas, I would say, is the best spearman in the game, and that's just stating that because of his defense. His defense is ridiculous. He is extremely durable, and then if he does die, he comes back with just enough health and just enough troops that he can stop full cavalry charges again. So he can be an extreme nuisance in PvP, but he can also save you in PvE in multiple occasions. And defense is the most important stat for a spearsman, because they're going to have the guard ability, and they're going to constantly be taking more hits than all the rest of your team combined, so they need to be able to take those hits. Now, his attack isn't that great, and that's not the point of him. That's not what a spearsman is for. So when you pick out your equipment, you always want to try to get stuff that's going to increase his defense. And the runes that I chose were the Thorns runes. So HP plus 10%, of course, works great, multiplies with the defense, so the more HP you have, the more that he's going to survive. So when attacked, 30% chance to reflect damage taken this time by 50%. So that's with 4 pieces. So every now and then, and he's going to get attacked a lot, so in a turn he's going to get attacked 5-6 times. He sometimes sends 50% of that damage back, and that can kill off enemy minions. It can destroy an army. It can really hurt the enemy. So that's definitely the runes I would recommend with him. I can't think of a better rune for him. That just fits him perfectly. And of course, when you're rolling these stats, you want to try to get defense increases. Of course, anything percentage based is going to be best for him, because he already has such a high base defense. The percentage increase is going to be a lot better than 1 or 2 points thrown in there. So the class route I went with Vargas, of course I kept him on the spearsman side, and I'm going to keep him there. We're going to go into Royal Vanguard. I wouldn't see why you would go any other. If you go the swordsman route, you're basically making him a very strong swordsman that will survive, but his damage output is still going to be not as good as Elwin, and I think your swordsmen really need to have a good damage output. So I would recommend go down the middle path, and of course, when you're in the far late game, you master every single one of those classes, and then you go back to the middle. So that's what I'd recommend for Vargas. So now the most important part of your team, your healer. So I have Tiaris, and I think she is the best healer in the game, because she's one of the only healers that rides on a horse. So she has that mobility, and she has an ability called Healing Light. So if you get close to your enemies and end your turn next to them, they will heal after every battle. So you just stand her next to your heroes, and she's already doing work. Now she has a single target heal and a mass heal. I would say she's one of the best healers in the game for healing large groups of people. So single target, she might not be the best, but for multiple people, she definitely is. She also can buff defense, but I feel like that is just icing on the cake. I almost don't even need to use that, especially now unlocking the faction buffs. It does not stack with faction buffs, so the defense ability kind of becomes mute. So we're gonna go into her class. Of course, I would suggest going down the middle. For any of these classes where it doesn't have a second option, you really should go on the one that has a second option. And of course, you can use the runes to go back and master that class and then come back with extra boosted stats. And the cool thing about that I don't think I've mentioned yet is that you can keep those abilities and you can put any abilities you want in. So you can stack abilities from different classes into your current one. So for the equipment for TRS, of course, it's very important to look for things that increase intelligence. Right now I have a crystal hammer. It's one of the few weapons I found that increase intelligence, and intelligence increasing means better heals. She's not going to do a lot of damage, and there's no way to really make her a damage output hero. So you always want to go for the intelligence boost because it'll make her heals better, and because of the way her heals are set up, you can always either do a mass heal or a regular heal every turn. You won't ever have to use a physical attack with her. Now the rune I'm using is the magic rune because it does, when you have 2 of them, it increases your intelligence by 5%. The attack part of that doesn't matter. When you have 4 of them, it increases skill damage by 10%, which is not really going to affect anything, but the AoE increases by an extra 5%. So I'm hoping that increases the healing AoE, but I'm not really sure that it does. So you can let me know in the comments if you know about that, but from what I've looked up, I can't seem to find any information, because the healing is technically an AoE, but I'm not sure if it actually affects that. So we're going to jump into another cavalry unit, the Diehard. So he was actually given away free for people that started the game on the day of launch. So he was given out. So a lot of people still have him, especially if you started at the start of the game. And he has an ability that allows him to move extra spaces. So I would say he's one of the best characters for PvP. He's not a really great cavalry unit in general. He's bog standard average. But that ability strike, where it gives him 3 extra moves, it does not show up on danger zones, so your opponents will not see it, and it will hit them by surprise. And this can actually almost break some of the campaign battles, because you use that ability and get much farther than they expect you to. You can even kill off characters that they didn't think you would be able to get to at that time period. So definitely use him in PvP. I have him set up with Rough C. As I said earlier with Leon, Rough C I would say is the best for someone actively attacking. And this is what he's gonna do. I call him my suicide character in PvP because he runs in and he kills off the healer, or he runs in and he kills off the mage when there's a weak spot. He doesn't get to move afterward much. The ability he has lets him move the spaces you have left. So if you only have 2 spaces left, you only get to move 2 spaces away, which means once he's run in, he's probably screwed. That's pretty much the blunt way of putting it. So of course with my equipment, I went towards anything that gave him attack. And that's what I would recommend, is focus all on attack, because he's a run in, kill something, and get away. But be very careful when doing PvP or anything that you don't run him into spears. Spears are everywhere. Constantly check their guard and see if they have an ability active that's doubling its range. So with him, check guard, run in and snipe something. Some people choose to go the assassin class. I really prefer him on the cavalry, the extra movement, and the ability to go in and kind of precision kill off a key unit of the enemy team. I feel is much more valuable than his assassin class. And from what I've seen with other people playing the assassin class is that it's weak, it seems to die off too easily, and it doesn't seem to help out in any PvE situation. And during PvP, I see it as an easy target to run over in his own cavalry form. So I definitely recommend doing cavalry, and of course mastering all the classes, again, will benefit every single one of your units. Okay, so those are my top 5 heroes. You'll see I left out Ledin because I don't really feel he is that great. But if you guys want to see more and see different characters, leave in the comments below. Or if you want me to go more in depth on any of the characters I talked about. So I do plan on posting another video about a guide on how to use these characters on the field. So look for that in the next few days.